Let's get to it. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ben's MicroVision podcast, a podcast for general information and entertainment purposes only, not a financial advice podcast. I want to say thanks for joining. I've noticed that over half of the people who watch the show every week are not subscribed, so if you would, go ahead and hit subscribe and add yourself to the ranks of the MicroVision podcast subscribers. I appreciate it a great deal, and I will work tirelessly to bring you the very best MicroVision-related information that I can each week. So with that in mind, this episode is going to zoom out a little bit and look at the macro viewpoint with the factors that are combining to usher in a world of MicroVision everywhere. So let's take a look at that. All right, so welcome everybody to episode 18 of Ben's MicroVision podcast titled Macro Viewpoint, presented by myself and brought to you by LaserRoasted.com. 1 cup and you'll say, make mine laser roasted. All right, this is a disclaimer. The disclaimer is intended to help you understand that even though I used to work for MicroVision, I no longer work for MicroVision. And I'm giving information to the best of my ability, and you should always consult a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Before we get too far into things, I wanted to share this article from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies called From Parade to Battlefield, LiDAR at the Core of China's Military Modernization. September 3rd, 2025, Beijing staged its largest ever Victory Day parade, marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Chinese Communist Party General Secretary Xi Jinping presided alongside Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, underscoring China's growing alignment with authoritarian powers. The display also showcased China's accelerating military modernization, with an emphasis on intelligentized warfare and autonomous systems. Notably, LiDAR sensors featured prominently across multiple platforms, from new main battle tanks to unmanned ground vehicles and robotic scouts, a clear demonstration that Beijing now views LiDAR as a foundational technology for the People's Liberation Army. What is LiDAR and why is China pursuing it? LiDAR is a remote sensing technology that uses laser pulses to map the surrounding environment in 3 dimensions with extraordinary accuracy. Originally developed for aerospace applications, LiDAR is now central to civilian industries such as autonomous driving, surveying, and infrastructure monitoring. By bouncing millions of laser pulses off nearby objects and measuring their return times, LiDAR generates precise spatial data that radar or cameras alone cannot match. This makes it indispensable for navigation, targeting, and situational awareness in complex or GPS-degraded environments. Beijing recognized LiDAR's potential early. In 2018, the Chinese Communist Party declared LiDAR a choke point technology, and mandated its integration into military systems under the country's military-civil fusion strategy. Since then, Chinese LiDAR firms including Hesai, RoboSense, Leishan, and DJI's Livox subsidiary have benefited from state subsidies and directives to scale production. The result is global market dominance. Chinese companies now account for nearly 80% of global LiDAR sales, leveraging a cost advantage that enables the PLA to integrate sensors at a mass scale. For Beijing, LiDAR's appeal is twofold. First, it strengthens the PLA's push toward intelligentized warfare, where autonomous and semi-autonomous platforms will play a central role. Second, widespread global adoption of Chinese LiDAR in cars, drones, and infrastructure creates potential pathways for espionage, disruption, or sabotage, as Chinese law requires domestic companies to support state intelligence services. Taken together, China's pursuit of LiDAR reflects not just a technological ambition, but a deliberate strategy to secure military advantage while embedding itself deeper into critical civilian networks worldwide. Amazing. PLA systems on public display. China's 2025 Victory Day Parade was not only about symbolism, it was also a carefully curated showcase of the PLA's modernization priorities, with an emphasis on autonomy, sensor fusion, and survivability. By unveiling tanks, unmanned platforms, and robotic scouts before a global audience, Beijing sought to signal both technological prowess and doctrinal evolution, away from attritional manpower-heavy operations toward a force designed to exploit data, automation, and artificial intelligence for decision-making and battlefield dominance. The parade also highlights the fruition of Beijing's policy of military-civil fusion, a large contemporary military resting on the cutting edge by virtue of an indigenous defense industrial base capable of delivering low-cost technological advances such as LiDAR at scale. So imagine that scene. There's Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and a guy from North Korea, Kim Jong-un. And they're all sitting there watching this parade of military devices and weapons and transport vehicles and quadruped robot dogs. And they've all got LiDAR sensors on them. And of course, these LiDAR sensors have all been manufactured by the state-owned companies that now have the massive market share. You can describe it however you want, but if you're Pete Hegseth or you're the Trump administration and you read this article by the Foundation of the Defense for Democracies, what do you think? We have not seen the same level of state support for this essential technology that the Chinese companies have enjoyed. So now the Chinese companies get all this support from the government, which drives all the costs down and helps them support them as they go to market with lower cost than a Western supplier could provide. It's quite a scene. And I just wonder what the U.S. administration thinks when they see articles like this. I'd like to put this article in front of Stephen Miller and see what he thinks is the appropriate thing to do. Here's an article published by Cornell University, Cybersecurity AI, Humanoid Robots as Attack Vectors. And in this article, the authors present a systematic security assessment of the Unitree G1 humanoid, showing it operates simultaneously as a covert surveillance node and can be purposed as an active cyber operations platform. Okay, what is this thing? Here we see the humanoid robot, and the Cornell University authors have found that persistent telemetry connections to external servers transmit robot state and sensor data without explicit user consent. The translation is, everything that this robot sees and does is instantly transmitted to the Chinese Communist Party, whether the person who bought the robot likes it or not. Here's the G1 humanoid in action. It is the C-3PO looking robot manufactured by Unitree, and you can see you can't kick it over, you can't punch it over. You can buy one of your very own for $21,600 and have a instant pipeline to the Communist Party in your own home. What could be better? Is it a good idea for the U.S. government to allow Chinese-made LiDAR onto U.S. public roads? Probably not. Here's some information that was brought to my attention by the inimitable Jeff Porter. It's a Chinese exoskeleton coupled with the augmented reality headset. I'm going to switch out the music that came with the video for something of my own. That's really something. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. In this episode, we're going to talk about 4 macro themes that I believe will drive demand for MicroVision's differentiated sensing and display systems over the course of the next 5 years. And those are AI at the edge and physical AI, autonomous systems, augmented reality, and defense modernization. These 4 macro themes will collectively pull demand for MicroVision solutions, I believe, into the end of this decade in a pretty significant way. We can think of AI at the edge and physical AI representing the brain inside the sensor. Autonomous systems, meaning the body in motion. Augmented reality as the human interface for artificial intelligence, and defense modernization as the intelligent battle space. Now, here's a little bit of market research information to help gauge the scale of the opportunity in each of these macro themes or super segments. Edge AI hardware is expected to go from $26 billion this year to $58.9 billion by 2030. Autonomous systems from $32.8 billion to $68 billion by 2031. AR from $35 billion to $233 billion by 2030, the majority of that being software and services related revenue. And defense modernization and sort of digital battlefield market from $43 billion in 2022 to $154 billion by 2030. In the upper right corner, you can see a chart that represents the growth there. The blue is the current value, or the most recent value for each of those segments as measured in billions. And the green is the value that's expected by 2030. So if it was only one of these segments that MicroVision was operating in, you would still say to yourself, that's a high growth segment. But actually, it's all 4 of these segments, and especially the AR and the battlefield ones, are going to have explosive growth, or at least forecast, between now and 2030. So you might consider that a tailwind, right? This is an inexorable kind of market force that's pulling demand for solutions in AR and defense modernization and physical AI and autonomy. Whether it's MicroVision or anybody else, there's going to be tremendous pull from the marketplace for systems, solutions, components, intellectual property, designs that enable those markets to take shape. And, it's not just me saying this, it's whatever you think about these market research companies. So there's kind of 2 aspects to how MicroVision plays in physical AI that I think are worthy of exploration. Okay, physical AI, meaning to say AI that's left the data center and is now embodied in a robot or intelligent machine that operates in the real world of 3 dimensions. And of course, there's a whole lot of interest in humanoid robots, saying that's going to generate $100 trillion in revenue, and maybe it will. It'll certainly generate some revenue, and it's a representation of this evolution where computers are going from servers in a data center to objects all around, whether it's in your home or in the factory or anywhere you might go. The world of C-3PO is coming to you. How MicroVision plays in this space is multifaceted. MicroVision's LiDAR has, of course, onboard perception and understanding that can segment scenes within the point cloud to determine what is a given object. It can, of course, detect the physical presence of an object with millimeter accuracy. It doesn't have to infer the distance to an object or try to calculate things, because it itself is the calculator, right? If you have a 2D image and you're trying to determine how far away is that object that I'm trying to pick up, well, you got to do some calculations. Those calculations generate heat and consume some CPU cycles, whatever. Whereas if you've got a laser measurement of the distance from yourself to the object, well, it's already done for you. You don't have to sit there and calculate it or infer it or try to guess at it. It's straightforward as it gets. So MicroVision will enable these drones, vehicles, humanoid robots to sense in 3D space, to decide and act instantly in these dynamic environments. This is an amazing thing. We can expect a macro trend for robots to proliferate, and then the question is, how do they function in the real world? Is it just a camera and sitting there and trying to determine everything based on inferences and models? Or is it actually just measuring the space around you, which seems the simplest and kind of most foolproof? And being foolproof is probably important because you don't want the thing to knock into little Billy or hurt the dog. Autonomous systems is kind of the main thrust of the company's current positioning. It's all about perception at the edge and delivering that high-fidelity environmental mapping and object detection capability. It's about making local decisions, so you don't have to send out the point cloud information to some external server to figure out what to do, but rather you recognize the scene, you understand the meaning, and you're ready to take action right there. Reducing that cycle time is very important when, of course, every millisecond counts. This also supports reliably functioning in a contested or GPS-denied environment. So if the chip contains all of the smarts to determine what to do given a scene, then you can just let it go fly in the case of a drone, or drive around in the case of a car, without having to be tethered or connected to any kind of central smarts. So this capability is applicable across vehicles, drones, and robots that we talked about previously. And there's some system level differentiation that MicroVision can provide, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. It's long been my belief that augmented reality and consumer eyewear displays are going to replace the handheld cell phone form factor for everyday computing and communication applications. And just this week or last week, we saw the launch of the Meta Ray-Ban displays, which is shown here, which uses a 600 by 600 LCOS panel, and it gives you some number of hours of usability between charges, and it's considered a Gen 1 product. So the Gen 1 product will give way to a Gen 2 product as time goes along, and I think everybody understands that's the nature of these things. MicroVision's laser beam scanning technology is uniquely suited to support the future generation of glasses like these because of its high brightness, full color, wide field of view, and low power consumption and tiny package size. So the inherent elements of the MicroVision architecture where if you want the image to be totally clear, you simply turn off the light source, right? If with an LCOS panel, there you have to block it with a black bunch of pixels that obscure the light. So you get some kind of little hazy box and things like this. So with this thing, if it's off, it's off. And you can have it off at any single place within the field of view. Whereas if you want some portion of your image black in an LCOS panel and another portion of the image white, well, you've got this backlight that's just glowing. It's not really black, it's sort of black, and then some of it's white. Long story short, and I could go on for a long time, is that this is the most power efficient and size efficient way to deliver digital information to the human visual system. A MicroVision laser beam scanning projector. And of course, it's the only one that's gone into production with Microsoft, and now it's in the Soldier-Borne Mission Command surrogate systems. I created Laser Roasted so you could enjoy the freshest coffee anywhere on Earth. Even the smallest bag is roasted to order. So that means that after you buy it, it's roasted, put in a bag, and shipped to your address. It will arrive at the absolute peak of freshness and flavor. So give it a try, and this week we're going to have a discount code MVIS10. Take 10% off your order of $50 or more. Use code MVIS10 at checkout, laserroasted.com. The role that MicroVision may play in defense modernization and the digital battlefield could be quite extensive, from equipping drones, vehicles, and counter-unmanned aerial systems with LiDAR sensors to augmenting the warfighter with laser beam scanning engines that power the soldier-borne AR systems for mission command, situational overlays, night vision, drone connectivity, weapon sights, connecting to the armored vehicles, all these things. And of course, MicroVision with the lowest system, size, weight, and power could allow it to be deployed across all types of platforms. So, as we talked about in previous episodes, the Department of War now has priorities for autonomy, for counter unmanned aerial systems, for command and control modernization, for equipping soldiers with the best equipment for safety and lethality. All that stuff seems to align directly with MicroVision. And you've got, of course, the threat or the emergence of the Chinese Communist Party and their digital battlefield capabilities, which they go all the way in on. So LiDAR on every single vehicle, every single quadruped, robot, and of course their version of IVAS for their soldiers. So to go out and win in physical AI and autonomous systems and soldier systems and augmented reality, we have to have the smallest size, the lowest weight, the lowest power consumption, and the lowest cost. If we have all of those things, then we're good to go. Okay, MicroVision has some unique advantages across all of these. I'll highlight just a couple of them. Of course, the laser beam scanning engine can be made to be extremely tiny. The sequential flash LiDAR, as Glenn described its satellite configuration, could be 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches, which should be easy enough to fit on drones or even on a soldier, certainly on a robot. On weight, the laser scanning projector is very lightweight. The tiny LiDAR is very lightweight. And when it comes to soldier-borne systems, we want to reduce the weight as much as possible. This is also true for drones, where the heavier the drone is, the less mission time it's got before it's got to come back and get recharged. Power consumption is a huge differentiator for MicroVision. The single self-illuminated flying spot is tremendously, orders of magnitude more efficient than always-on backlight systems such as an LCOS. And it's going to be dramatically more power efficient than micro-LED, as the boss of Meta's AR group arrived at that conclusion himself. The LiDAR is going to consume very little power in its short-range configuration. So essentially you have the lowest power per frame of LiDAR point cloud using MicroVision, certainly versus things like frequency modulated continuous wave type systems. So that means that the MicroVision devices will run cooler, they'll last longer on a battery, and they can be more useful in untethered systems. And the lowest cost, I'm going to hide my little guy here. The laser beam scanning architecture is inherently scalable because it uses semiconductor type manufacturing. There's no mechanical parts per se. It does not require nanometer type precision alignment, such as the micro LED requires. The sequential flash has no moving parts. All this together means MicroVision can hit cost points that make sense for consumer AR glasses and mass market automotive industrial LiDAR, as well as defense applications. I think that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for sticking with me. My voice is not 100%, but hopefully it's not too distracting. I appreciate everybody for watching. Hit me up on YouTube in the comments. I got notifications on, and we'll do the after party in there. I'll try my best to respond to every single comment, and I do appreciate it very much. Let me know what you think about all this. It seems to me like we've got some very powerful macro forces that are going to pull the MicroVision solution across. It sure would be great to see the U.S. kind of step up to the plate so that we aren't behind the Chinese when it comes to these capabilities. So maybe we will see that. I sure hope so. All right, take care, everybody. We'll see you next weekend.